Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 273. Hey, if you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on my YouTube channel and click on my college website link and you can download the workbook, Excel Magic Trick 268 to 275. Hey, in this trick, we have a little database here with names and test scores. And we need to, over here, for test 1 and test 2, figure out who got the max score. So we need, for example, in test 4, we have a 94. We need to get this name. We have someone else who tied for the max score. We need to get that name. And finally, down here, we need to get that name. This would be a little bit more straightforward if we didn't have ties. But we have ties. Hey, the first thing we're going to do is let's name each column, because we need to analyze the data just in this column. So if we name it test 4, it'll help in our formula creation. Hey, I'm going to highlight the whole table. The keyboard shortcut to highlight the whole table is Control asterisk. That's on the number pad, asterisk. We have the names at the top of each column that we want to name. So we use our keyboard shortcut Control Shift F3. That's create names from selection. I'm not going to use the left column. I'm just going to use the rows, the names from the top row. Click OK. Now let's test it. Let's see here. If I go to the name box and point to test 2, it looks like I got it right. All right, now I need to list the tests here because I'm actually going to use the indirect function for a bunch of the formulas we use. And what does the indirect do? Well, we'll see that in a moment. We just need to list the actual name, test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, test 5. Now I could do this, right? Enter equals this, enter. But there's a faster way. You highlight the whole range, and in the active cell, you type equals transpose. Transpose takes something orientated horizontally and reorientates it vertically, or vice versa. Now, I close parentheses, and this is an array function. So you have to highlight the whole array, same size as this, but switched around dimension-wise. Got to highlight the whole range, put your function, and then hold Control and Shift and Enter. That way, if we, well, anyway, so that's one quick way to do it. Now let's get the max score. So for this column, I need to have the number 94 here. So I'm going to, in this cell right here, actually blow this up, type equals max. Now I could just systematically highlight each range, but to speed up formula creation, I can use the indirect function. Indirect. If I click on this, indirect will take this text string, test 1, and convert it to a range. So this is a clever way of not having to highlight that range, each individual range for the max function. And if you don't believe it, you can highlight it and hit your F9 key, which is evaluate, and you can see 59, 35, 16. Those are exactly the scores in the test 1 column. All right, I'm going to Control Z on that because I do not want that there. All right, and then Control Enter to put the formula in the cell and keep the cell highlighted, because we're immediately going to point to our fill handle. When we see our little crosshair angry rabbit, double click and send it down. Now we need to count. This formula is going to need to know how many max scores there are. So I'm just going to use count if. Oh, and we get to do our same trick again with the indirect of this, right? So instead of highlighting 5 different ranges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ranges, we just use the indirect like that with our names here. All right, and then comma, what are we counting? The max score. Close parentheses. So the range for COUNTIF is the indirect of that name there, and the criteria is going to be the max. Control Enter, and double click and send it down. So there's 3 there and 1 of these other ones. Now here's the big array formula, which of course I first learned this formula construct from Aladdin at the Mr. Excel message board. All right, ready? Equals if, and we're going to have to use columns here. We need to, we're going to use the columns to increment numbers, because notice I'm going to copy this formula over here, and I need a blank when there's not any more names to retrieve. So I will I need it to increment 1, 2, 3. So for example, here, when I get over to here, 3. When I get to this one, the columns will say 4, and that'll be the switch to turn off the formula and show a blank. So I'm going to columns of what? L13. Actually, $ L13 colon L13. That will increment numbers as we go forward. And what are we going to do? If that's less than or equal to this count right here, and that needs to be locked in all directions. So that'll be the trigger, blank or our index function, which will retrieve the name. So if this is true, which means the columns 1 is less than or equal to 1 in this case, then what do we want? We want our index. Now the array is going to be that name. So over here, this column right here. So I'm just going to type name. And I can see the screen tips hiding it, but right there, in 2007, you get a drop down when there's a name. It has a little dog tag like right there, so I can hit tab. All right, comma, and now the row number. This is the tricky part. This is where we have to deal with duplicates. So we're going to start off with small. And the array, we're going to have to do a true false here because we have to pick out that max. So if, and we need our corresponding for each row, we need our corresponding range of values. So we'll do the indirect here. Amazing how cool this indirect function is. And I need to lock it going to the side because as I copy this formula over here, it needs to be locked on that cell right there. So I'll hit F4 3 times. And close parentheses. And if that's the whole range, right? If that's equal to the max value, and I need to lock this going to the side too. So $ in front of the J, but not the number, because when it goes down, it needs to move to the next one. So if that's true, what do I want? I want row. Because remember the index, right here, we need to get a row number. So what are we going to do? Row. Now I'm just going to use that name. If only I could type. Name, and that is the same as highlighting this whole thing here, right? Well, right now it will give us 13, but and here it'll give us 14, right? Because it's looking at that row right there. But really, when we get to this 97, we want this to say 2 for row number. So I'm going to come over here, minus row of this one right here, just to right there. So, and unlock it with an F4. That way, it gets 13 minus 13, which is 0. But we don't want that, so then we have to add one more. OK, so that's a oops, I forgot the close parentheses right there. So then we add one more. So that whole little thing, if you highlight this and hit the F9 key, you'll see it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13. Whoa! And that's that'll give us our row number for this index. Control Z to undo that. Now, I need to, I have the value of true here. I'm going to close parentheses because I don't need a false. And then the screen tip's going to say, hey, I need the K for the small. And this is the small that is going to help us with our duplicates. Well, when I'm in the first column, I want 1. This will increment higher, so when it gets over to this one, it'll take the second smallest of the row numbers that the first part of the small delivered. Now I'm going to close parentheses on the small. Now I have my row number, and I don't need a column number, so close parentheses on that. Finally, the if. Man, these screen tips are so polite. You know, when you do a big formula like this, you get lost, but then the screen tip will help you. Oh, yeah, I need a value if true. Well, I got that, so I'm going to type a comma. The value if false. This is where I put my blank. So what the if did, this true false logical construct here is either going to deliver the index function, which will give us the name when it's true, and when it's false, it'll deliver a blank. All right, now this is an array formula, so I have to hold Control and Shift and Enter. Now I'm going to double click and send this down, and then drag this all the way over. You could have however many you want. And sure enough, that did not work. We have to go look. I'm going to click right here and hit the F2 key, which is Edit. Presumably, probably, I forgot to lock one of the right less columns did I get K? Oh, that's right. Oh, I got the wrong number. So I'm going to go back up to this back to the original cell right here and change this so that it's locked for the column but not the row. Because what happened is the formulas down here are still looking at that 1. So when it gets to 3, it's not looking at 3, it's looking at 1. So I hit F4 once and twice. $sign in front of the K. Control Shift Enter. Double click and send it down. And then copy it over. Thanks for wading through that mistake there. But mistakes happen every day. If you don't have 100 mistakes in every day, you're not paying attention probably. Hey, and plus mistakes are the best way to learn. Hey, there it is. Name 2, name 5, name 12. Let's go see if that's right. So we have name 2, name 5, and name 12. And plus, look at this. Yeah, it's these name 2 peoples that are always getting the high scores and bumping all us low score guys out of the way. Hey, we'll see you next Excel trick.